Welcome to the immersive audio experience of Neon Nexus, Beyond Binary Bonds, a novel that plunges you into a world of futuristic rebellion, unwavering friendship, and the undeniable power of human connection. Written by the talented Matthew Davison and narrated by artificial intelligence, this audiobook promises to take you on a journey through the neon-lit streets of Neo Haven, a dystopian city on the brink of ruin. As you delve into this story, you will encounter Lane Anderson, Lola, Benny, Jade, and Surf, characters that will capture your heart and ignite your imagination. So, sit back, relax, and let the echoes of Neo Haven surround you.
The neon glow of Neo Haven cast long, distorted shadows that veiled its streets. Lane Anderson, his face a map of hardship, wandered through its labyrinthine alleys, seeking solace amidst the urban chaos. The chance meeting with the enigmatic Phoenix had set his world alight with questions, illuminating parts of his soul he'd long buried. Phoenix's words had been cryptic yet alluring. "You're not alone, Lane. There are others in the shadows, and each scarred, each seeking. Find them." As Lane ventured deeper, he stumbled upon the Pylon, a makeshift bar in the city's derelict sector. It buzzed with life, a melting pot of rebels, dreamers, and lost souls. At the bar, he met Zoe, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, bearing tattoos of fallen empires. Her voice was laced with cynicism, yet her eyes betrayed a yearning. "New face?" she queried, eyeing Lane. Lane nodded. "Seeking connections." "Connections or solace?" a voice chimed in. Beside Zoe stood Cole, his ebony skin contrasting with silver cybernetic implants. His fingers danced on a holographic panel, controlling the ambience. "Maybe both," Lane responded, intrigued. As the night deepened, Lane learned their stories. Zoe, once a prominent teacher, had her work censored by Neo Haven's oligarchs, pushing her underground. Cole, a tech prodigy, had been betrayed by a partner and left to fend for himself, his skills now serving the city's rebels. A trio in the corner caught Lane's attention. With sea blue eyes, Ivy played a haunting melody on a violin. Its notes weaving tales of sorrow. Beside her, twins Luca and Lyra danced, their movements echoing Ivy's melancholy tune. Drawn in, Lane approached. "Your music speaks of loss." Ivy smiled sadly. "In Neo Haven, who hasn't lost?" Luca, his hair streaked with blue, chimed in. "But loss unites us. We've formed a family here, each member scarred, each one strong." Lyra, mirroring her twin yet with a sunnier disposition, nodded. "We've all seen darkness, but together we find the light." Lane felt a connection, realizing Phoenix's intent. This place, these people were kindred spirits, souls who'd suffered yet still hoped. In their camaraderie, Lane felt a warmth he'd missed for years. Sensing his reflection, Zoe asked, "What's your story, Wanderer?" Lane hesitated, then began sharing tales of past mistakes, despair, and the glimmer of hope Phoenix had ignited. He realized he'd bared his soul, feeling lighter. Cole smirked. "So Phoenix sent you. That old fox always has a plan." Lane looked puzzled. "You know Phoenix?" Zoe laughed. "In Neo Haven, who doesn't? He's a legend, but he doesn't approach anyone without reason." Ever the optimist, Lyra added, "He sees potential, Lane, perhaps in you more than you see in yourself." The Pylon was familiar to Lane. He'd been there countless times, trying to escape the suffocating reality outside, losing himself in the ambience of muffled conversations, neon glows, and intoxicating scents. He was used to the chaos, the swirling masses of people, each seeking solace in their way. Tonight, however, was different. Lane had been sitting at his usual spot at the bar, a dimly lit corner where he could observe the entire place without drawing too much attention. His fingers played absently with the rim of his glass when a sudden hush rippled through the pylon, drawing his gaze to the entrance. There, framed by the rustic door, was a vision of fiery red curls and alabaster skin. Lola. She seemed out of place, a beacon of vivacity in an otherwise grim backdrop. She wasn't there to hide or escape. She was on a mission. As she moved further into the room, her sharp green eyes scanned the place, and for a fleeting moment, they locked onto Lane's. A mix of vulnerability and determination is reflected in them. Drawn to her, almost as if on autopilot, Lane approached her. "You seem new," he remarked casually, trying to mask the intrigue in his voice. Lola's eyebrows arched slightly. "Am I that obvious?" Lane chuckled, only to those who pay attention. She smirked, her initial defenses dropping a little. "Well, Mr. Observant, I'm looking for someone. Heard he frequents the pylon." "Might be able to help," Lane responded, curious about her quest. The two found a more private booth, the dim lighting giving their conversation a secretive aura. She explained her reason for coming to the pylon and how she sought contact within the resistance against Skytech Industries, known as the Whisper. Lane's heart raced. He was familiar with the Whisper and had occasionally dealt with him. The conversation took unexpected turns. From the urgency of her mission, they drifted into personal stories. Lola spoke about her art and the rebellion it represented. Lane, hesitantly at first, shared snippets of his past, his struggles, his dreams, and the weight of his regrets. Hours seemed to fly, and their connection deepened, charged with an undeniable magnetism. They talked, laughed, and even shared silent moments where words were unnecessary. As the neon lights of the pylon began to wane, signaling the early hours of the morning, Lane leaned forward, his voice soft but deliberate. "I can help you find the Whisper, but I have a condition." Lola looked at him with wary eyes. "Which is?" Lane extended his hand. "Once this is over, you and I share another evening like this. No agendas, just two souls getting to know one another." She smiled, her eyes reflecting a cocktail of emotions, amusement, relief, and perhaps the beginnings of affection. "Deal," she replied, sealing their pact with a handshake. From that moment in the pylon, the trajectory of both their lives shifted. Their chance meeting wasn't just a twist of fate, but the universe conspiring to bring two kindred souls together. And as they left the pylon that night, the city of Neo Haven bore witness to the beginning of a bond that would change its very destiny. As Neo Haven awoke, Lane stepped out of the pylon, not as a lone wanderer, but as part of a tapestry of resilient souls. The path ahead, though uncertain, held promise. And for the first time in years, Lane Anderson felt truly alive. The world outside the pylon starkly contrasted the haven Lane had just departed from. The sun was nowhere in sight, swallowed whole by the perpetual, thick ash-gray clouds that hung over Neo Haven. Buildings loomed tall and cold. Their reflective windows barely caught the dim lights of the city below. Everywhere he looked, there was a reminder of the chains that had bound him for so long. But today, with the echo of newfound camaraderie ringing in his ears, Lane felt differently. He was more aware, more present, and he was not alone. Walking beside him was Lola, a striking figure with fiery red hair cascading down in unruly curls, her skin so fair it seemed to glow even amidst the city's murk. They shared a pace, a rhythm that felt natural. "You know," Lola began, her green eyes locking onto his, "I've never met someone and felt an immediate connection. Not like this." Lane chuckled. "I guess Phoenix knew what he was doing." Lola smirked. "Phoenix always knows. But it's not just him. There's something about you, Lane." He glanced her way, a small smile forming. "Perhaps it's our shared understanding of pain." Silence settled between them, comfortable and profound. They continued to wind through the city streets, passing by enormous, grimy air purifiers, remnants of a time when the air was breathable, and street kids playing with bits of discarded tech. Lola stopped suddenly by a half-torn poster plastered on a wall, its edges flapping gently in the breeze. The faded artwork depicted a massive rally, a protest against the oppressive reign of Skytech Industries. At the bottom, in bold, rebellious strokes, was the signature: Lola. You did this?" Lane whispered, his fingers brushing over the jagged edges of the paper. Lola nodded, her voice tinged with pride and sorrow. "Art was my voice, but they tried to silence it, just like they did with everything beautiful in this city." Lane looked deep into her eyes, witnessing a spirit unyielding, a flame undying. "They failed," he murmured. The two shared more about their pasts as they roamed the streets. Lane spoke of the choices he'd made, both good and bad, that led him to the man he'd become. Lola, in turn, recounted tales of her time as an urban artist, her pieces a beacon of hope in Neo Haven's grim landscape. But as the city changed, as the dark hands of Skytech Industries reached further, snuffing out voices of dissent, Lola's art transformed. It became a tool for resistance, a call to arms. "Our stories are different," Lola mused. "But the pain, the loss, it's the same. You know, Lane, in you I see the Neo Haven that once was, a city of dreams, of hopes. And though it's buried deep, there's a fire in you, just waiting to burn bright." Lane's heart raced. No one had ever seen him like this, understood him so thoroughly. He felt a connection forged in the crucible of shared pain and mutual understanding. They found themselves on the outskirts of Neo Haven, where the city's grime gave way to the remnants of nature. Here, the resistance had made its home. Underground tunnels, fortified shelters, and guerrilla outposts dotted the landscape. And as Lane took it all in, he realized his journey with Lola had just begun. The two worked together, pooling their talents. Lane's strategic mind, honed from years of navigating the treacherous city streets, and Lola's artistic prowess, made them a formidable pair. They planned rallies, created propaganda, and gave hope to those who'd lost it all. Nights spent in the shelter were moments of respite. Huddled around a makeshift fire, Lola would sketch, her fingers dancing over paper, creating magic. Lane would watch her, enraptured. And in those quiet moments, their bond deepened, two souls finding solace in a callous world. One evening, as the embers of their fire burned low, Lola turned to Lane. "I've made many pieces in my life, but this," she handed him a delicate sketch, "is for you." It was a portrait, but not just any. It was Lane, but seen through Lola's eyes. The pain, hope, and fire were all captured in perfect detail. Their eyes met, and words were unnecessary. In the heart of a decaying city, amidst the rubble and ruin, two souls had found each other. And as the first rays of dawn peeked through the perpetual cloud cover, Lane and Lola sat side by side, ready to face whatever challenges Neo Haven threw their way together. The city was still in slumber as the first rays of dawn peeked through the perpetual cloud cover, casting a diffuse, almost ethereal glow on the streets of Neo Haven. The somber gray of the towering buildings bore a hint of golden hue, a fleeting moment of beauty, in a world where aesthetics were usually secondary to survival. Lane and Lola walked side by side, their steps synchronized in rhythm, much like the silent beat of their hearts. The night had been an emotional whirlwind, but the impending day held promises of adventure and change. Lola adjusted the collar of her jacket against the cold. "Benny's place isn't on any map, Lane. Rumors say he's built a labyrinth underneath the city." Lane nodded. "Rumors also say he's got a plan, a blueprint to take down Skytech. We need him, Lola." Lola shot him a sidelong glance. "You believe in the Nexus emblem, don't you?" He smiled, squeezing her hand for reassurance. "More than ever." They trekked through the serpentine alleyways, descending into the subterranean depths of the city. A vast network of tunnels sprawled before them, remnants of a time when Neo Haven was a place of ambition and growth. "Word is," Lola began as they delved deeper, "the Whisper uses sonic frequencies to communicate. No tech, sound waves." Lane chuckled. "No wonder Skytech hasn't nabbed him yet." Suddenly a resonating hum filled the air, echoing through the tunnels. The frequency shifted, fluctuating between pitches, almost forming a pattern. Lane and Lola paused, realizing they had stumbled upon the Whisper's territory. Before they could make their next move, a figure stepped out from the shadows, his appearance contrasting starkly with the grim surroundings. Benny, a.k.a. The Whisper was a slight man with a wild mop of curly hair and eyes that sparkled with mischief and intelligence. He wore an ensemble of gadgets, wires, and what looked like homemade communicative devices. Lola stepped forward, her voice steady. "Benny, we've come with the Nexus emblem. We believe in the change it can bring." Benny studied them, his face inscrutable. Belief is a rare commodity these days, Lane responded, determination evident in his eyes. Yet here we are. A slow smile spread across Benny's face. So you are. All right then, let's get to work. The trio began devising a plan. Benny's lair was a technological wonderland filled with devices, blueprints, and tools. He explained how the Nexus emblem was more than just a symbol. It was a piece of tech that, when activated, could interrupt Skytech's primary signal, potentially freeing Neo Haven from its clutches. Hours flew by. Each member was engrossed in their task. Lane and Lola took on the roles of the field agents, navigating the intricate digital maps Benny provided and identifying weak points in Skytech's infrastructure. As the day faded into night, Benny, Lane, and Lola looked at the holographic projection of the city, the Nexus emblem glowing brightly in its center. "We have a long journey ahead," Lane whispered, his voice filled with hope. Lola squeezed his hand, her gaze determined. "We're ready." The next chapter in the rebellion of Neo Haven had begun, and at its helm stood three unlikely heroes, bound by a shared vision of a brighter future.
Thank you for joining us on this exhilarating journey through the realms of Neon Nexus, beyond binary bonds. Your company in Neo Haven has been greatly cherished. Please subscribe now to ensure that you don't miss out on the continuing adventures of Lane, Lola, and their valiant companions. Stay tuned for more episodes where technology meets humanity, and where rebellion ignites hope. Together, let's unveil the future, one chapter at a time. See you in the next episode.